that. All right, we're going to call this meeting to order. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Second,
He's excused.
Dean,
Here.
Gardner,
Here.
Leo,
Here.
Lewis,
Here. Excused.
Custer,
Also excused. All right, we have no agenda changes, so we'll hop right into it. Our first guest, Lisa Mize. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Please introduce yourself for us.
Lisa Mize, Executive Director of the Saugatuck Douglas Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. And thank you very much for allowing me to speak, and thank you for your time. I know Mayor Lewis has already seen this a couple times, and also Councilman Gardner has seen it as well. So I will probably run through it. And this sounds really loud, you guys.
It's perfect. You're fine.
It's purposefully loud.
But it's for the folks on the line, yeah.
Okay, so I just wanted to give everybody an update as to what's going on marketing wise for our area and what we have in the works for 2022. The first couple pages are really just about who our team is from Concept Day Creative. We've got public relations and our creative team, as well as social media. And then I have a new gal at the CVB. Her name is Eve. And if you haven't met her, be sure to say hi next time you stop in. The next page is talking about website traffic, and you can take a look at the numbers. I'm not going to do a deep dive into these, but the numbers are up over the last several years and definitely after the new website launch. The geographic website reach, you'll notice the markets that we are targeting: Chicago, Detroit, Indianapolis, Columbus, Cleveland. And then we are also looking at other markets that we can target in the future. Believe it or not, New York City was number 5 as far as visiting our website. So that's pretty cool. And Ann Arbor and Washington, DC.
Above Ann Arbor.
Do you like that?
That's interesting.
I like
yeah.
that. When we launched the new website, we also launched Book Direct, which is a platform that allows the visitor to the website to book their stay directly from the website, so they don't have to hop off and make a phone call. They can, if the softwares are compatible, they'll be able to book their stay right from saugatuck.com, which is a great thing. And I've heard wonderful feedback from our lodging members. If you're not aware, we put out monthly website articles. These articles begin in a newsletter that goes to 18,000 subscribers, and we usually do 2 per month. And then those articles live on saugatuck.com always. So we push it out, and then they live on saugatuck.com. And in those articles, we mention many, many businesses in the area. We typically talk about restaurants, retail, things to do, craft beverages. Something that we just launched last summer, July of 2021, was something called Experiences. And if you're familiar with the Airbnb experiences, we wanted to copy that. When people are planning their vacations, they now like to look and see what is there to do in the area. So we've curated this list, and we're continuing to add to it. If you know of anybody that you think has something unique that they could offer, I would love to see a walking culinary tour back in town, which would be lovely. But we're continuing to add to this list. Our digital advertising, you can kind of tell the different audiences that we reach. So we don't target just one audience. We're looking at families, couples, LGBTQ, girls' weekends. You'll see everybody is targeted. And that's obviously Google and Facebook. Public relations, I know that I've pushed this out to you guys a lot, but I like to toot our horn. And we've gotten some wonderful press in the last few years. So this lives on the website. And if you ever want access to it, obviously it's on the footer, so you can access all of those. We've been working with a new company called Chop and Hue out of Grand Rapids. They're a videography company, and we've been working to increase our photo asset library, and also update the video on the website. So last summer, we started out shooting here in Saugatuck. We also shot in Douglas and in Fenville. We did the same in the fall. We obviously went to Cranes and got apple picking and the pumpkin patch. We did a winter shoot just this past February. We were out at the Saugatuck Dune State Park. And then our spring shoot, we've been waiting until everything starts to really pop open and the flowers and the buds on the trees. So we're looking at doing that sometime in June. All of those assets are used in a number of ways. So you can see the deliverables on the side. It's not just, we don't just shoot a video and use it on the website. We can take little slices of that and use it on social media. We can use it B-roll for any number of things. For 2022, new things that we're looking at, if you haven't been north on 196, just south of the Fenville exit, we've got the new billboard up, Escape to the Art Coast of Michigan. I love the color, love the beach. We've put out a new discovery guide. If you haven't seen this yet, I'm going to be very stingy with these and I'll tell you why. The discovery guide was designed to reach an audience who has never visited our area before. So it's a lot of pretty pictures and a lot of wonderful content about the history of the area, about what makes us special, why are we called the Art Coast of Michigan. We put lodging in here because if they're planning a visit, they're going to need to research lodging, but there's no advertising. It's meant to be an inspirational piece. So we pushed this out about a month ago and it went via the Wall Street Journal to Chicago, Detroit, Indianapolis, Cleveland, and Cincinnati. And we did 30,000 of them. We're going to push out another 30,000 this fall to push the shoulder season. So we're quite happy with the discovery guide. I've gotten some feedback from lodging who they weren't quite sure what the purpose was. So if you talk to anybody, the purpose was not to keep this thing local. The small pocket travel guide, that's for the person who's already here. A couple more guides we're adding this year. In addition to that pocket travel guide and the hiking trails map that we printed last year, we're adding a drink guide and map. So all the cideries, wineries, and breweries in the area, as well as the arts guide and trail map. And that will cover the art galleries, studios, and all the sculptures, Saugatuck, Douglas, and Fenville. Those I'm hoping to have in my office next week. So just in time before Memorial Day. Social media is kind of self-explanatory. I'm sure you're all aware. We're on Facebook, Instagram. We are delving into TikTok this year, Pinterest and Twitter. And then just as a reminder, if you're out and about with friends, be sure to, and if you're taking pictures and on social media, use one of these two hashtags and then our social media gal picks those up and she can repurpose your post. And then the most exciting thing, not most exciting, it's just a fun little addition here, kind of big. We've never done this before, but we are doing an insert into Midwest Living magazine. It'll go into the September-October issue. It will be polybagged with the magazine. So it's its own separate little magazine. It's not something that they have to pull out. It's going to 495,000 subscribers covering 7 states, and we're pushing fall. So it'll go out in mid-August, but it'll be for September, October, and everything there is to do here in the fall, from color tours to apple picking to wineries, you name it, we're going to tell them about it. Any questions? I ran through it.
All right, questions for Lisa? Go for it.
Thanks, Mayor. Lisa, thank you for the presentation. Excellent. I really enjoyed seeing the digital data and the metrics in terms of visitors and where they're coming from. It's probably not possible, but I think a number of us would really enjoy seeing numbers that would show, actual bodies in town.
I wish I had those numbers.
Yeah, the months they're here, what things look month on month, year on year, because we could use it for a whole number of planning purposes.
I agree. And I don't know where to get those numbers. I apologize. We've had people call the office. There's someone that wants to open up a new hotel in the area.
Right.
And he's asking me for that type of information. And I'm like,
Yeah,
Yes.
it's just an observation of it. I mean, I'm sure we're in the same boat. We'd love to see it, but
I'm not sure how to
we
curate.
gather it, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful, Lisa. You guys do a fantastic job with this, and kind of building off what Scott said is I was at a party over before Christmas, and a long-term resident of this community told me, he said, I've been told that we have over 2 million visitors a year in Saugatuck. And I said,
Where did he get the number?
well, that's what I asked him, and he didn't give me a source. So just that number's out there, and I'm not sure.
Let's
where it
talk to
comes
him.
from.
Maybe he knows something we don't.
Talk offline, but when I heard that number, I was like, 2 million.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's somebody extrapolating from the Oval Beach
I-
traffic
yeah.
or something. I don't know.
I wonder if there is a way utilizing data analytics.
If we
to-
had that Airbnb data,
Mhm.
that would help too, because now we have more than just hotel rooms. Now we have short-term rental numbers and how many times they're turning over.
Is that info that you could?
I
ask
am
for?
trying to talk to the board about buying a service that would do account for us.
Cool.
And I would be happy to share it with you because I'm looking for obviously names, addresses, hopefully emails of all the short-term rental owners
Mhm.
in our area for the impending legislation if it passes.
Yes, very good. Well, I really appreciate the travel guide. I just stopped in yesterday and the trail guide. Our renters are looking for those all the time and they're very popular. So I'm looking forward to the additional 2. Those should be really neat. That's,
The pocket guide, we are going to redesign this fall for 2023. People loved the small size, but the maps were a bit too small.
also
So for old eyes, you
Yeah.
need to make them bigger.
Mhm.
very good.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Lisa.
Lisa, I
Really
just want to
appreciate
say that every time you come here, I'm more impressed.
Aw.
It seems like your reach gets bigger and bigger and you're always
I
improving.
have a wonderful
so-
team.
Yeah.
I have a great
Thank
team.
you.
Mhm.
Good. Thank you so much. All right, next up, Russ Gardner, Mount
Hey,
Bald
thank-
Head Work Group.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Before we really dive into this, I just want to acknowledge the folks that are here with John Kerr. This member of our work group is online, as well as Bob Sapita and Vic Bella in the back there. Some of you may know these gentlemen. The only member, and Scott, and Ryan has been a de facto member. He's been on all the communications. The only other member that's not here is Chuck Gustafson, and he had a scheduled vacation, so he's not here. Otherwise, he would be here in attendance as well. So I just want to acknowledge their time and effort and hours over the past 10 months or so in helping support what you're seeing today. So without their effort and time and commitment, we would not be discussing this project today.
And we have Scott Herbert and
Well,
Chad
well,
here.
Scott as well. Yeah, Scott's been,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, well, we do thank Scott in here, so. And Jamie's got the slide deck up there. I'll page through this. Not going to spend a lot of time on kind of rehashing the past here. Everybody knows about the radar station. It's been interesting to find out as we've been working on this, how few people actually know what it is and how unique it is to Saugatuck. Matter of fact, myself, when I first started on this, I had some conceptions about what it was, and now that I know what it is, I am convinced this is something that we need to be concerned about and save. And we'll talk a little bit about that and how we've arrived at this conclusion. But there's a lot of opportunities here to continue to educate people on the importance of this and the uniqueness of this site, and as well as a continued commitment to continue to move ahead with different options on it. So I just want to thank, there's been a number of people involved here, the Ogden County Sheriff's Department, the DETS crew, which that's where I thank Scott because he was instrumental in getting the DETS crew up there. And man, those guys work. We were super impressed by the work that they did, and they really moved us ahead. The Bald Head Group, which I talked about, we've had over 25 unique volunteers that have participated, community members, the Saugatuck Douglas Rotary Club, the Saugatuck High School Interact Club, and a bunch of other people that have been involved that are maybe not formally on a group, but came because they're interested. The RJ Peterson estate actually is, with RJ's passing, Matt and Cindy Peterson have been very gracious in allowing us to go in and see some of the materials that RJ had collected over the years. A few items have come out of that we've added to the collection over at the History Center. That I just want to acknowledge their help, as well as the Saugatuck City Council. Council has been more than supportive of this effort over the course of the past 10 months. And the History Center, Eric, I can never pronounce his last name correctly, but Eric, John Kerr from the History Center and others have been extremely helpful in just kind of moving us forward and providing guidance. Next slide, please. Oop, go ahead, Ryan.
Yes. Just to help for all the people that are viewing, DETS crew. Now that everyone know what the DETS
Oh.
crew is.
I forget what the acronym stands for. Scott, do you remember?
They're the gel
Work
release
Yes,
group,
work, yes, work release
that
group.
come out and they do a great job helping the city out. So
Yeah, thanks for that.
you're welcome.
I don't have the acronym memorized
I know,
either.
yeah.
So real quickly, just to recap, this group was established back in May of 2021, and our mission is to make a recommendation regarding the future of the Gap Filler Annex, which is the official name of the radar station. The core group remains unchanged. The only person out here today is Chuck, as I mentioned. Our goals and objectives for the project were to secure the site, raise awareness, and determine future state, which we're here today to have a recommendation for council to consider. We have some things that we're working on to finish securing the site. I'll talk about that in a moment. Begin study of potential preservation options for the grounds and annex building, and also complete the State Historic Preservation Office application. That is going to be key. We expect that this property will make the State Historic Preservation places, and ultimately will make the Federal Register of Historic Places. We're receiving every indication from the parties involved that it's on a guide path or glide path towards that. May 16th, we have a site tour with Nathan Niedering, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. He's the Michigan State Historic Preservation Office Project Coordinator. He is the one that is guiding this application to completion, has given us a lot of positive feedback. He expects this to be on the September 2022 agenda for the State Historic Preservation Office to approve. Next slide, please. So a little bit of update on where we stand for secure the site. I'll show some pictures here in a moment, but really what we wanted to do was to secure the premises for the purposes of discouraging vandalism and protecting trespassers from physical injury. That was clear from council's comments back in May, is we wanted to make sure the site was safe, so it didn't injure anybody and people could not harm themselves by just simply going up and looking at it and going up the tower, which is still a popular pastime. So we have a few things we still need to complete, replace and repair the perimeter fence. That solution remains elusive. We had a contractor that this council actually approved an invoice, a quote last, was it June or July? I forget when it was. And we've been ghosted. So a lot of companies show a lot of interest in that process, and Scott can attest to how difficult work is up there. They would get real excited, and then when it comes down to actually doing the work, they either don't show up or so. That solution remains elusive. Chuck's leading that process at this point. He's been communicating with Ryan and with a couple of vendors, so we hope to have an answer on this here probably in the next 2 weeks or so. But that is something that we definitely need to have completed. Finished painting, there's some areas of the building that still need to be painted, which we couldn't complete in the fall. We have some touch up to do from the winter, did some damage to the paint, as well as increased security. Something that we've learned since being up there so often is that people have a great interest in this building. They just want to know about it. They want to go visit it. They want to climb the tower, which is not permitted by the public. People frequently jump over that. They can get over the interior fence and get up and go on the tower. As a matter of fact, about 2 weeks ago, Chuck was up there and noticed that someone actually had gotten inside. They had brand new headlamps, and they had thrown the boxes inside the fence and gone up. That's dangerous, extremely dangerous. And the group would like to work with Ryan to get a vendor to go up and increase security, replace all the locks, lock the radome itself, which is not locked. So people, once they get up the tower, then go in, as well as make sure the perimeter is secure. There's some spots that people can get over the fence, and that needs to be fixed by a professional. So we'd like council approval to move ahead with that. It's absolutely critical to the security of that building and the tower. And raise awareness. I won't go through the bullet points, but we've done a lot of work to raise the awareness of this project to the community nationwide as well. We have a Wikipedia page, which is, I don't have the current hits, but it's gotten a lot of interest. This is a national treasure. I know that's big words for us, but this is a national treasure. It's unique. There's only one of these in the country that we've been able to identify. We're sitting on a treasure, and I'm just convinced this is something we need to be seriously thinking about going forward in terms of saving and looking at future preservation. Again, as I mentioned, one of the items on our docket is to determine future state. We've had a ton of groundswell public support, as I mentioned, and you can look at the stats in there. Also want to mention to Lisa that we've been using those hashtags in our Instagram posts and Facebook posts. So we're doing our best to get the message out there as well. There's a lot of interest in what this group has been doing, both locally as well as nationally. Next slide, please. One of the key things that we did was we put up two signs at the site, one at the base of the stairs and one at the top of the stairs. There was no signage at all at the building to tell anybody that would come there what they were looking at. I had a visitor that said, "What is this place?" I've always heard it's a place where they used to look for submarines. So there's some really kind of crazy stories out there. And so the group put together two signs, which basically explains what the site is. These are temporary signs. They are not meant to be permanent. We're looking at a permanent sign at the base of the stairs. We'll work with Scott, work with city staff on the actual placement of that sign. It will look much like what we're seeing from the other historical signs that are going up around town. But it really needs some information for people because they want to know what they're looking at. So very proud of our group for putting those together. I want to thank John Curry, who was the primary designer of these. Next slide, please. This is a brief history. I won't go through this either. Just know that it was built in 1956 and it went dormant in 1969. The city purchased it for $250 in July of 1969. So good investment, team. Something interesting that we've begun to run across is as we put the message out, we're getting some pictures of this site back from the 60s. And we don't have exact data on this, but here's some pictures of the site as it looked in the early 60s. And you'll notice that the radome wasn't yet put on the tower, and that was it was going around 5.3 times a minute. And you can see from there, it was a pretty straightforward site. There wasn't a lot to it. Had a fence, had a no trespassing sign from the government on it, and that was about it. So it really remains unchanged, other than you can see there's now a lot of trees around the site, which you don't see here. You'll notice on that picture on the right, you'll see that telephone pole, what looks like a telephone pole. That's where the star used to be mounted. Therefore, so not allowed to be permanently mounted up there. So the Sea Scouts would go up every fall. They would take it up, they put it up, and then they bring it down in the spring. So it was all incandescent bulbs, and we still have pieces of that. So kind of cool. Next slide, please. Just a real quick example of where we started and where we are today. We took this picture in the winter before everything started to fill in, but as you can see, there's that pile right in front of the left picture. I had to thank Scott and his team, but they really had some work taking that down, and that's a one-time effort. So now that we've got this all cleaned out, the group and volunteers will continue to make sure that that is maintained and it's not overgrown again. So next slide, please. So the interior as well, as you can see on the left, is where we kind of started. It was basically the junk drawer for the park up there, and through this group's efforts, we were able to actually, much of that stuff has been reused and or thrown out. But we actually cleaned it up. We didn't remove anything other than some of the junk, but it's just been cleaned up, so it's a little bit more presentable. Plus we put new light bulbs in. So the numbers, a little bit of statistics. To this point, the city has expended $4,468.20 in hard costs. That was for mostly paint and roofing. We've had 30+ volunteers involved, and the total, we've had about 325 volunteer hours on this project since we started. That's probably a little conservative. So I cannot thank the people that have been involved with this and the passion behind it enough. It's just been really fantastic and humbling to work with these people. Next slide, please. Fund development. So just to remind everybody, we've had 2 donations to the group to this point. We have $1,200 from Neil Lafort and a $1,000 grant from the Saugatuck Douglas Rotary Club, specifically earmarked for the permanent sign, which has not yet been erected. That money is being held by the History Center and will be used once the final sign is designed and we get cost estimates and so forth. Future donations, the group will be forming a LLC to what we call Friends of the Mount Baldhead Radar Station, be a 501c3 to allow tax deductible donations to that group. When created, the group will act as a catalyst to promote and assist with funding future projects to preserve the site. Next slide, please. So what are we recommending? The group is recommending that the building be saved. The tower has not really ever been a discussion item. That tower is iconic, and a lot of people use that as a wayfinder when they're coming to town, boats, and when they come into town, they look for it. It's kind of comforting. But the building itself, which has been kind of out of sight, out of mind, is historic and does have a lot of value to this community. It's historically important. It's got a lot of community relevance. I can't tell you the number of personal stories I've heard when I'm up there, when someone will say, you know, I used to do this up there, or I used to do that. Some of it I can't share in public. But the fact of the matter is that this is in this community's DNA. And it's important that it should be saved. It's a very popular attraction. Talk about counts. Be nice to have someone up there counting the number of people we've seen up there. It's just amazing the number of people that come up there and just enjoy the spot. Plus, it's educational. The building and its history can educate people, and that's something we've learned too in some presentations we've done. As well as this summer, the Pump House Museum will be setting up a semi-permanent bald head visit or bald head exhibit. Part of that will include the radar station. So we're going to continue to try to educate people and inform them of what this is. So the next step and really kind of the next conversation for us is preservation roadmap. We've determined it should be saved for the reasons mentioned, but restoration, preservation, we don't quite know what that looks like. We don't have an answer on that, but we need some expert help. Last fall, we talked at our strategic planning session. We've had a preservation consultant that came up and visited us last fall, had some ideas, really good ideas, and had made a proposal. What we'd like to do is ask council, that amount was about $6,500. What we'd like to do is the work group is willing to commit to raising half of that money from public contributions if the city's willing to match that. So it would be half and half. And that would get us a report from that group, which would give us some options, which give this council some feedback and options in terms of what that might look like. Restoration, preservation, what are the things that need to be done? How can the building be stabilized? We have ideas, but we really would need an expert to help us with that. So I know no action is taken today, but the ask of this group is that the city be willing to consider one half of an investment with the group covering the other half through public contributions to take that next step.
Council comments, and questions?
Thank you for.
Yep. So Russ, I have a couple. How many
Sure.
meetings have you all had?
Meetings. Yeah, we generally have met. Yeah, once a week.
So where can I see the recordings of those meetings and the agendas and the minutes?
We have agendas and minutes. We do not have recorded meetings.
Okay, I'd like to see all those, and I'm sure council would like to see all those. I will just speak from my own experience, and maybe I'll speak for Holly at this point. With our ad hoc type groups, all of our meetings have been public with a publicly shared agenda and publicly shared approved minutes and recordings. So my ask as mayor would be that any meetings that happen henceforth are made public and available to the public to participate in and be aware of.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? I have a few more. The signs that you mentioned,
Mhm.
you'll know that those will need to come in front of us for approval first.
Absolutely.
Okay, when will we
Mhm.
see these?
We don't have a timeline yet on this. John, any thoughts on that from a timing standpoint?
It depends on when we get the money, Russ. And once we have the LLC set up, we can start collecting money.
Okay. Then I would also assume that once the meetings become public, that you'll put forward a formal ask based on probably survey data. I haven't seen a survey that's gone to the community in any way, asking them how they feel about this project and the preservation of this project. I've not seen any of that. Again, speaking from experience, we've done a number of surveys in the ad hoc groups that we've been a part of, so I would expect the same, that we get public input on this project. So that would be an ask I have.
What would, Mayor, what were your suggestions on how we would survey the public for a project like this?
I've used SurveyMonkey. We've used this municipality listservs. We've done that routinely with recycling, for example. We work hand in hand with the municipalities and ask that they share the link. That has usually been developed as a team effort. And most of the folks who I've been involved with are pretty good at survey development and, getting a good survey together. But without data, you're just another person with an opinion. And we need to be, especially for your historic preservation, they're going to want this type of data. They're going to
And-
absolutely expect it.
And and the data would be indicating,
Actual public interest in preservation of this site. Actual expenditure of city dollars, actual private-public partnership wish. Those are
Which-
pretty standard.
In due respect, I could see that as being a next phase with a study being completed of ideas and thoughts and costs associated with different opportunities.
Yeah.
At this point, there are no options on the table. There are, other than asking for city commitment to go in half with the group to fund the preservation study, which would then begin to develop options, which I think that would then be extremely important to get feedback from the community, because that would then represent.
Yep, so the charge of the group has been to come back with a formal recommendation to council, and I would imagine that that would be included in that then. Right? So that would be the recommendation, because your charge is done at the end of June.
Mhm.
So, okay.
So I think it's, you've all done a great job with the physical restoration. I mean, the safety has been a concern for me as well. Scott has had to listen to me bring that issue up. It's a little scary. So I'm really happy with the work that the group has done and reaching out to the community. But you know, I just, as chair of the Blue Star Trail, I just have to remind you that the Friends of the Blue Star Trail spent $64,000 on consulting and engineers before they got $1 from the city. So the ask is a little bit hard for me. Also, to dovetail to what Garn said, I would have to see, we have experts, we have a whole city of experts, and I would be very interested to know how the public would rank this project and what they would think about giving money to the building when we obviously have issues with the bathrooms and the parking lot and the decking, and I'm uncomfortable with that.
I appreciate that, Councilperson Leo. But again, let me reiterate, there is no ask from this group for any preservation funds at this point. It is a recommendation that the building be saved. It's been mostly secured. There's a few items that I mentioned that need to be completed. But more importantly is that we don't know yet what that preservation option might look like. And that's when the dollars and more of a formal proposal would be presented to the city and hence the citizens as well to make a decision from a capital improvement plan. Where does this fit into the overall projects that we have? So at this point, really the ask is to simply contribute 50% to a preservation study, which will then give us a wider roadmap that the city council, city staff can then begin to use to build into the capital improvement plan.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying and I understand what the ask is, but if you have the type of popularity that you say you do and you have the support, I think you should be able to raise that money from the public.
I mean, I'll make a few comments, having worked with the work group over the past year. First of all, these guys have volunteered a lot of sweat and time, and I'm very proud to have worked with them. Holly, I do think there are some differences between this project and the Blue Star Trail. This facility is actually a city asset. It's on city property. It's in a city park. It was an attractive nuisance, and frankly, it still is. When we first arrived in the site, working alongside or working after the debt crew, there was barbed wire, concertina wire, broken glass, any number of hazards that could have hurt someone. The crew, worked to clear as much of that out that they could, with their abilities. And it's a very difficult site to work on because it's up on the top of Mount Bald Head. It's difficult to get up there. It's difficult to get down stuff down. So there's that. But people, as Russ has pointed out, people do go up there. The fence that's there is extremely old. We know for a fact that people scale the fence because of its design. They do climb the stairs up to Mount Bald Head. I mean, a number of us, have told stories and heard stories of how we've all done it as tourists or growing up in town. We've been really lucky that no one's been killed or seriously hurt. The work group has done a good job to sort of, with their limited means, limited funding, to, paint the site, put up what fencing we could. We found and scavenged fencing on site and put up, orange snow fence, just to let people know that this is a work in progress. You need to stay away. The team actually, I think, used their own funds to put up a no trespassing sign. So we've done everything we can, I think, to mitigate, risk. People know they shouldn't be going up there. There is signage. Nevertheless, because the fence is in such terrible shape, people can bypass it, and there is no lock up in the radar dome, so people can go up there, and it's a confined space issue. It's very dangerous. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, about raising money, but this does belong to the city, and we do have a nuisance here that could cause a risk to people. We've done everything we can as a work group to try to make it secure and to try to warn people off the dangers, but there's more we can do. I mean, there's an opportunity to do more. And so I think that part's important. The next steps, obviously, I think it's better for somebody that's more of an expert than, this group is an expert in history and I tend to agree with them that this is quite unique. This is, Saugatuck's a small town, but, this is just about as unique as having a, World War II era submarine, or a, when I lived over in the UK, there was a place called Bletchley Park, which was basically, now it's basically one of the few remaining places where people can understand how modern computing happened. This facility is an example of the dawn of network computing, modems, any number of things that have to do with the STEM field in terms of education. So, that's just my opinion in terms of its uniqueness, but I do think I'll go back to the point that, this is a city asset. It has not been maintained for a long time, and that does present some potential negative consequences if people continue to access it inappropriately.
Well, I would absolutely agree that I'm sure that like the number of times you all climb the stairs is unbearable. I mean, it's unbearably high, but, and I would agree with you that as a nuisance, absolutely, it needs to be secured. And we are very fortunate that no one has been injured that we know of.
Yeah.
So I have no problem securing that site, paying for a fence. I just don't know how I feel turning around to the Friends of the Blue Star or my constituents and saying, this is money that we're going to spend on a consultant when they will say to me, what about the bathrooms? That's where you get into data and weighing what's important. So another question that I have is AT&T is interested in, placing some technology there. So is there an opportunity for your group with AT&T?
We've talked about that at our meetings, and Chuck Gustafson actually has been the consultant to help with kind of understand what's up there. So when the AT&T or contractor has been up there to understand what they're seeing. It's always been on my mind that AT&T could be used as I don't know if there'd be a way to do some quid pro quo, because there's some other issues up there that need to be addressed. The timer for the star, timer for the navigation light, the electricity up there is just not very good. And we don't really get into this in this discussion, but that can be a site that could be a potential small revenue generator for the city or for other types of telecommunication uses. I haven't had any conversations with AT&T about where they stand, what they might need from an infrastructure standpoint up there that might help the city also meet its goal. Don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly would want to secure their whatever work they have.
So I have another question. You mentioned, the role of the Saugatuck Douglas History Center. I mean, you've tried to make a point that this is a history worth preserving from a historical perspective. I'm curious where the SDHC is and their role in this project. Why are they not leading this when it's a historic project?
John, I can answer that if you have a comment though.
Let John answer. He's a rep from the.
Couple reasons. We're not leading it, one, because we don't have the money to do it. We're looking at the cost of the restoration of this facility realistically is well over $100,000. That's our annual budget. So we're not in the position to do that. What we are doing is helping with the discussions. We're leading it into with the government units. We're giving it the historical designations, and we're promoting it as best we can by having the Mount Bald Head exhibit. It's going to attract a lot of people and hopefully donate more funds to the LLC once we get set up. But the History Center also looks at it as it's a city park. It's a city facility that's been neglected for many years. And much of the work that we've done so far has simply been to really deal with the negligence so far by painting the graffiti, cleaning up the junk that's been in the grass, cutting down the weeds and the vines and the trees that have overgrown the whole thing. So, I mean, we're doing what we can for a small 99% volunteer organization with limited funds. So,
All right.
I guess I look at it more like, why isn't the city doing more with such an asset that they have? If you truly understand, it's not the building, it's what's inside the building that is of historical value. I know there's a lot of emotional attachment to the building in the community, but we're viewing it as the historic stuff is the story about the computer systems that are inside it, that still exist there today. If you understand that story, I think you have a greater appreciation for why we want to preserve it. It's not for the History Center, it's for the community and really for the national audience.
And I have another question. So since the city assumed, basically purchased this property in 1969, how many reported accidents have there been? Do we know? I don't know of any. I don't know of any. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from council?
Appreciate the feedback. Thank you, John. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, John. All right. Next up, we're at the public comments section of the agenda. This is on any agenda item. If anybody in the audience would like to please come up, introduce yourself, your location of residence, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes, please.
My name is Steve Friedman. My wife and I, about 20 years ago, built a house on, we're at 559 Hoffman, to, enjoy as a weekend house and retire here. I'd like to also commend what Lisa's doing is phenomenal. But 20 years ago, or actually 18, when we moved into the house, the neighborhood was totally different. We knew all our neighbors. We could count on each other. Actually, I have a health issue. Okay. I started a new treatment on Friday. I'm very ditzy. I've spoke with Ryan this afternoon. And he said he maybe could help me out. If that's okay with everybody.
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to do it.
Yes.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'm a little off. I'm sorry to say,
But
not my
no worries.
normal.
Many blessings to you,
obnoxious
Mr.
self.
Friedman, and just take care of yourself. and-
Thank you.
So I'm just going to relay his comments and concerns. So we did speak today. Wonderful gentleman. He also knows our Parks and Public Works crew, and they speak highly of you, at least to your face. JK. So his concern, Mr. Friedman's concern, is the noise that is going on his house. Right. So what we spoke about was that, one, this is the city of Saugatuck. Rentals are not new, right?
Excuse me for 1 second.
Yes, sir.
I am surrounded by rentals.
On what, 3 sides, right?
3 sides.
3 sides.
Plus they're also across the street.
Yes. Okay. Are you gonna let me do this or not?
I'm sorry to interrupt. What is his address? Where's your?
It's
address?
559 Hoffman.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
we won't be interrupting.
So I'm
him
just
at his
relaying
place
his
of
concerns.
residence.
No, I know. I'm just trying to get a sense of where he is.
Oh,
so
got
I'm
you.
off.
Do you want to explain that a little bit more?
Yeah,
Where am I? I'm near the high
You need to,
school.
you need to.
You gotta be on the mic. Oh, shoot.
Near the high
Hey,
school.
We're only at 2 minutes now.
Okay.
Oh, geez. Don't put me under pressure. I got enough problems in life. I'm on Hoffman near the high school.
Okay.
I mean, you know,
So you're on the other side of Grant or Elizabeth or this side of Elizabeth?
I'm confused. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
no worries.
And no worries.
I'm
It's
between Elizabeth
559
and Grand.
Hoffman.
Okay.
I got this. And so, so we talked about the fact that rentals are not new in Saugatuck, right? But what we discussed was that what is kind of new is the commercial enterprise of these homes becoming large Airbnbs with a lot of transient people coming in. And so what Mr. Friedman was speaking to earlier was kind of the transient nature of losing this kind of neighborhood fabric. And this is not unique to Saugatuck. This is kind of happening, well, it is happening all over the Midwest, all over the US and all over the world. And so he was asking what can be done. And I said, well, you know, we have some things that we have to contend with. We have state legislature, we have lobbyists. And so what you can do right now is call the police. If you have noise concerns, make the cops your friends. Going forward, there is a balance that the city can look at as far as balancing this historic rental business in the fun city of Saugatuck, and kind of trying to maintain this fabric of a neighborhood. And that's where we ended up. And those were the basic points. So he's really disappointed that we can't do something faster, or more quickly. But I did explain that we have some other issues to deal with that are out of our, totally in our control.
You know, I appreciate all this. I just, I don't want to have to move.
Right.
Because, right now, I'm kind of worn out and I just can't tell you how annoying it is, with all the commotion and bachelorette parties and, et cetera. So I would appreciate anything you can do,
Okay,
and if I can help or do anything, I'd be happy to.
okay,
Okay?
very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman.
Anybody else want to come up? Anybody online? Madam Clerk?
No raised hands.
All right, very good. We're going to move ahead then to discussion items. First up, we have the Pride Month proclamation. Mr. Manager, anything? This one's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, this is on page 32. This will be on your agenda on Monday.
Thanks to Councilperson Leo, this has become a regular approval event since 2019. So pretty straightforward. Any council comments or questions? All right, next up, we have special event, the Town Crier Race.
Madam Mayor, this is on page 34 of your agenda packet. It'll be on your Monday agenda packet as well.
Okay.
I will mention that I ran in this race last year and I did beat Councilman Dean.
You're
Sorry.
throwing down the gauntlet, are you? Comments?
No
council
no
questions?
comments?
I saw you out kind of.
We'll just leave it on the road this year. We'll let the tape tell the tale this
Oh,
year.
wow.
Very
Okay,
good.
We'll see about it.
It
We'll
was,
look at the data this year.
yeah. It's very good to see everybody on board as far as the lieutenant and our fire chief as well. So this is good. Any council questions or comments? Pretty straightforward. All right, Parks and Public Works Committee introduction. This one's definitely for you, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, happy to address this one. At your strategic planning meeting that you had in December of 21, one of the items was to consolidate your committees and maybe dissolve some committees that were not as active. This was going to be a help to staff as well as council, just to add some efficiencies as far as time spent on posting agendas, keeping minutes, and putting agenda packets together. everything that goes into hosting a committee meeting. So one of the things that came up was the Parks and Public Works Committee, which used to exist back in the day for the city of Saugatuck. As far as I can tell, it was dissolved in 2012. I mean, from my perspective, the city spends most of its money on Parks and Public Works. And so it was very surprising when I arrived that there was actually not a Parks and Public Works Committee that would do a lot of the vetting and make recommendations to council, like you have many other committees. And so what you all talked about was, yeah, we should probably reform this group. And so that's what we're going to present to you in late May. What I've put in this little packet here, or this little cover page, I should say, it's just a basic framework. There'll be a larger ordinance that really spells out what the committee's scope of work is. And so, yeah, this goes back to December of 2021. We're finally getting to it, and this is where we're at.
All right, very good. Council, questions, comments?
I'll kick it off if I may,
Okay.
Mayor. Ryan, I think this is a great idea. I'm 100% in support. In fact, I think it goes back to our earlier discussion about the station, which is a part of a park. And I think by having this committee and having this level of rigor around it, this level of transparency, and allowing us to look at our parks holistically, it will allow us to make better decisions about where we're going to devote resources and the scheduling of devoting those resources. So I think for all the reasons we spoke about earlier, this is a great way to sort of look at our parks holistically, and I'm all for it.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I would also add that I would agree with Councilmember Dean that this is a very important move for the city to make. Full support of this. I would add from a historical perspective, there was I'm not sure it was called the public, and it's too bad Councilman Beckon's not here because he'll have the whole track record. But when I was in council previously, we did have a Public Works Committee and we had an administrative committee. And that Public Works Committee met with the city manager and I believe with the super of the DPW once a week. And that was around some of the things that you discussed, where you vet issues, you discuss ideas. The superintendent was a very important part of that conversation. That group would then bring recommendations, the administrative group would do the same thing to the council for discussion. So that's where ideas that were, coming up through residents, were coming up from council members would be vetted, and it would become part of the discussion at the council level. So why that was not kept going, I'm not sure, but that's the history that I have.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, please.
Once a week.
If I recall correctly, I think we met. We might
wow.
have we might have met before the regular council meeting. I'm thinking once a week, but it could have been maybe less frequently. But anyway, the structure is essentially the same as what
Okay.
this is.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, so I would envision this being a once a month group, just like most of the committees, unless there's more activity going on. And I think that's the way I framed it, or meet more often as necessary, depending on the project that's going on. And I do want to keep, my recommendation is to keep the committee as high level as possible, and not get into the nitty gritty of details of Scott's operations, how I manage the city. That's why you hired me.
Right.
As far as I understand, that's why I keep Scott on staff. And so, yeah, just trying to keep it super high level. It's all in here. I'll come up with a good ordinance. Kate White is also doing research around the state to see what other Parks and Public Works committees are doing. And then also dissolving the tree committee, which could be absorbed with the Parks and Public Works Committee. Interestingly enough, based on Kate's research so far, the city of Dexter also made a recent move and absorbed their tree committee into their Parks and Public Works. So this is not unforeign.
I would just give a shout out to DPW because they run a city. They manage our crown jewel, internationally renowned beach. And then on top of that, they get to maintain over 200 acres of parkland. And it's a heavy lift for Scott and his crew. So I love the idea of having a Parks and Public Works Committee. It's very unusual for a town of our size to have the amount of parkland that we have. And it's all different terrains, different types. And I think it's a great idea. It's something we've been kicking around for a while, and I'm in full support.
I think given what's going on in the township, especially as far as a real focus on parks and trails, and where our compadre John Vanderbeek and his true passion around the trails, this is a really good return to normal, so to speak. It is surprising that for 10 years we haven't had this committee. I would assume, and I've written these notes, I would assume, of course, that it would have a city council representative, and that there would also be, as there are with our other boards and commissions, a stipend attached to the role. It's a small stipend always, it's never enough. It's your mad money, it's your mad money, but enough to, I should say, make it worth their while, I guess, so to speak, but there's some portion of that. I think the tree board had a stipend attached with there, so it'll be more about transitioning it over. So looking at that.
Madam Mayor, if I can add to that. So the previous structure of this was that it was 3 council members appointed by the council that met with the manager and the superintendent of DPW. So there was no stipend attached to it. It was part of the responsibility of serving as the council members to serve on that committee or serve on the administrative committee conversely. So 6 council members, the mayor still continue to be the direct contact with the city manager. The 6 council members would be, decided together, you serve on the admin, you serve on public works. There would be some rotation too, to make sure you get some experience on both.
Yeah, from what I'm reading here and what I know about other public, that this is generally one city council appointee, similar to planning commission, historic commission, any of the boards and commissions that we have, and that it would have a nice makeup of constituent involvement as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, I would say that having 3 council persons on the committee, which is probably going to be one of your strongest committees moving forward, because that's where you spend most of your money, is very dangerous. And that you're only 1 council person away from a quorum. So I would kind of pivot back to your comments about having constituents be on this committee, whether it be 5 persons or 7 persons, but having 3 council members is, in my opinion, very, very dangerous.
I'll be curious, with Kate's work, to see what the other bodies are made up of. I would be surprised if it's any more than 1 city council member.
Madam Mayor and City Manager, please let me correct what I said. I wasn't making a recommendation. That's what we should return to. I'm just giving you a historical
We're just discussing.
of
It's
what
all
was
good.
here before.
Appreciate
That's
it.
it.
Appreciate it. Yeah,
Yep.
just making comments.
I would just like to say, I like that we're looking to citizens that have a background in landscaping, urban forestry, civil engineering, urban and rural planning, architecture, art, construction. I think the focus on folks who can bring some of that knowledge base to this group is a good call out.
Madam Mayor, you always look for a good balance of maybe at least 1 person who doesn't know anything about parks and maybe just is in finance or, something else, just to have that strike a balance. So, well, I trust that the council will work this out.
Oh, yeah.
Just fine.
Well, as I said, it's good to see this coming back around. It's much needed, given the acreage that we have. It has to be maintained. So, other thoughts, comments? All right, very good, excellent. So late May, you think we'll?
Late May,
probably have
yep.
A motion?
Yeah, and Madam Mayor and I yes.
Okay.
And then, I should mention that I've talked to Scott Herbert about this. And as far as I know, he was very comfortable with having this committee formed. What our concern is collectively, Scott and I, is that we don't want to be micromanaged.
Right.
But we want, again, keep it high level. But he thinks it's a good idea to have a lot of the projects vetted out through committee, recommended to council. And so I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, Scott. Madam Mayor, if it's not inappropriate.
No, come.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, we just get really excited anytime we get people interested in public works and parks and want to spend a lot of money on them. So that's a welcome conversation that we're eager to get involved in. And as I was surprised, actually, as I talked about it with some of the other public works staff members, that there was even interest among our own staff. And so even with me today, Cody Hardy, this is half of our parks department right here. So we're happy to see this. I'm sure there's going to be some wrinkles to work through, but
Sure.
Overall, I think keeping that big picture in mind is going to be beneficial for staff and the community.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Scott.
Scott. Appreciate it. All right. Anything else from council?
No, I just think also this puts us in a strong position to go after grants,
Yes.
funding, and
Yes.
Absolutely.
prior to this, we haven't really been able to prioritize. It's been sort of whack-a-mole or
Mhm.
throw this grant
Mhm.
here or so.
Yeah,
I applaud that.
great. All right, very good. Moving on, Household Hazardous Waste Day contribution request. This should be old news to all of us here, as I think I've mentioned it in every meeting since maybe the beginning of the year. The Household Hazardous Waste Day is scheduled for the 24th of May at our DPW. Last year we had 270 vehicles come through. I've made space for 288 this year and anticipate that we'll probably have some more. So we've already gotten a good response on the Sign Up Genius. But basically, to just cut to the chase, on page 47, Household Hazardous Waste Day 2022, given the popularity from last year, we would like to make this an annual event, short of making it a permanent part of our single hauler contract, which is a recommendation at the end of this report. We received 3 competitive bids. Chose to go with ERG Environmental Services with a bid of approximately $24,000. The Rotary Club procured a $10,000 grant from Rotary International. This is a matching grant, so the Rotary Club and myself are working together to at least match that if we can to get to the necessary amount. Last year, the 3 municipalities gave, and that's on the first page. This year, we're asking each to give up to $5,000. The city of Douglas met Monday evening and approved that amount, and the township, I believe, meets, if not this Wednesday, next Wednesday, and are probably, it's very good that they're going to approve it as well. So my formal request to council, as we did last year, is to approve up to $5,000 to be used for the Household Hazardous Waste Day. And that is it. Questions? It's a great event. It's like the social event of the season. It really is. I think last year with it being, COVID, just the end of COVID and folks coming through that line, everybody was really happy to see one another, which was really good. This year we've got, in addition to Rotary, we've got the Interact kids helping out already. Carter Dvorak, who's kind of the leader of that little group, he and I met Sunday, and they're all on and all in. So they'll be there to help as well. So.
Madam Mayor, I do have a
Yes.
question.
Yes.
What color are the shirts going to be this year?
Same color. Yeah, we don't like to deviate too much from green, but we are going to have the year added on the
Uh-huh.
bottom. So, it could be like a collector's item.
Will it be like a forest green or a toxic waste green?
Yeah. I don't know exactly the true color descriptor of what it is. That's a good one, though. I
Neon
like
green.
that.
It is pretty toxic.
Neon, yeah. Yeah.
Can you
So,
reiterate the date?
May 24th, whatever that Tuesday is, from 3 to 7.
And where could folks, are all the signups gone?
No, there's about 60% of the spots are taken up already. All those
Okay.
early time, 3:15, 3:30 already full.
Okay.
If you remind me, I'll ask each municipality to get that sign up Genus out again. So we'll get that, we'll keep getting that out, whether it's through the commercial record or municipal e-blasts.
Is that on the
Or
website?
It's on the
city
website. Yeah,
Okay.
it's on the city website. It's on the Facebook page.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So, and if y'all don't mind with your own social media pages to share that would be great. I'd love to see us reach that capacity. So pretty straightforward. All right, okay, very good. All right, Kalamazoo Lake Sewer and Water Authority invoice. There you go, Mr. Manager.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, thank you. I was forwarded,
guys.
thanks guys, an invoice from Cal Lake Sewer and Water. It's kind of a historical invoice. It goes back to 2/22/21, I think. Just kind of as I was onboarding into the city. Anyways, it's an invoice and Cal Lake Sewer and Water is requesting payment. As I put in my cover page, I attached some history from the interim city manager. You know, she had discussion with the director of Cal Lake Sewer and Water. My recommendation on Monday is gonna be to have the Cal Lake Sewer and Water provide any documentation on kind of the operations agreement that they have with the city. Hope they do exist, but I guess there's a number of them. And then without also some information or data from what actually happened that caused the invoice. And I'll just leave it there for the moment.
Okay, all right. Council comments, questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Thanks, Madam Mayor. The exact address, Park Street, again, I don't know house numbers very well except for my own. So where on Park Street was this?
I can't, there's no
One
map. How
one-
can I point it out?
181 Park Street. I'm just curious as to approximately where that was. So that's all.
Molly?
I would just say that normally on a construction site, it would be either the contractor's insurance or the vendor who placed the dumpster on top of the water main would, that, you know, we would, Cal Lake would probably be able to make a claim against that insurance, even if it's an older claim coming from a construction family. This is pretty standard, so I don't see, I'm not really sure why the city would pay the bill. I have some questions about that.
Yeah, Mayor, I just find it strange, looking through the correspondence, that the former manager instructed Cal Lake, if you want to build a developer, build them. How are we supposed to know who that might be? You were on the site, you know the details. The trail seems to go cold from there, unless you've heard there's other correspondence, but suddenly the bill is just being resent to the city a year and a half later without any explanation.
There's additional correspondence, but I don't think it's
Worth sharing, yeah.
if it's worth sharing or appropriate. Yeah.
Okay, but I mean, it's strange just to see an invoice recycled like this, the instruction to me from the city to the water authority seems to be clear. Yet they haven't seemed to have done anything but just sent the bill back again. So I'm with Holly. I'm sort of not inclined to try to chase down something that wasn't acted on a year and a half ago with the responsible party, which is clearly the construction firm or their subcontractor that placed this dumpster on top of the main or on top of the shut off.
My question, what I would personally like to get is a recommendation from our attorneys. I'd love them to review this whole thing and come back to us with a recommendation, because this covers, two different managers, an interim manager, and it's over the course of almost 2 years? Almost.
It's October of 2020, yeah.
Yeah, so that's quite a bit of time, and I appreciate their expertise in municipal law. And I would think, especially because you've inherited this and really weren't aware of it, it's kind of puts you in an awkward position as manager. I would think that we would ask our attorneys to review this and make a recommendation, because I trust their insight.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And sorry, Councilman Gardner, I didn't mean to be so flippant with my response. I don't know exactly where this address is at or the crossroad. Again, that happened before my time. To your comments, I think it's time well spent if we had the attorney review this invoice, if that's what it comes down to, because we are working on our asset management plan with Cal Lake Sewer and Water Authority. And, frankly, this is an issue that comes up time and time again with water service repairs and, you know, what the responsibility of Cal Lake Sewer and Water is and where the responsibility of the city of Saugatuck is. And I would love to see that in black and white
Yeah.
so that there is not this kind of back and forth confusion. And that confusion, and this is why it's important to me, results in poor customer service. So oftentimes you just have, you know, Cal Lake come in and fix the water service. Great, thank you, good service. And now who's responsible for repairing the roadway? And then that seems to be a point of confusion, like, oh, that's not our job. And we say, city says, well, not our job. And like, we all kind of throw our hands up. And then who's the loser in this situation? It's, you know, the house that has a pothole in front of it, a big water service repair. So I think you know, I don't want to speak for Cal Lake Sewer and Water Director, but I think he would appreciate having this in black and white.
Mhm.
I know the city does for sure, township, and City Village of Douglas, who also get services. I think we all want this in black and white. And so to have attorney review this one little incident could pay dividends. And so I would support that recommendation come Monday.
Makes sense to
Yeah.
me.
All right. Other questions or comments from council? Very good. With that, we are at public comment portion of the agenda again, and this is on any item whatsoever. If anybody's with us and would like to step up, introduce themselves and limit your comments to 3 minutes, that would be wonderful. Anybody? Anybody online, Madam Clerk? All right, very good. I have no correspondence. Council comments. Madam Leo.
None at this time, Mayor.
Mr. Gardner.
I'm good, thanks.
Another nightmare.
All right, very good. And I'm good. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Very good.